Here we go, Kinesiology 223, Chapter 8, book presentation number 7, specific to critical race theory and race in sport. So the book goes into critical race theory being pivotal to one's individual experience while being rooted in social systems. They note that the conversation regarding race and equality is a conversation basically about social justice. In some regards, you have to have a commitment to social justice. But I will state this, when you're talking about race and equality and social justice, you can't have that conversation without having the conversation of race, inequality, and lack of social justice. Because oftentimes through bias or ignorance, just straight up racism, you'll have this inequality and social injustice that pervades. So it's a challenging conversation to have, though, because we're all unique. We all bring to the table our unique set of backgrounds and experiences, etc. And in some regard, as we've talked about, you have to acknowledge and accept those individuals. And just simple conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion, the diversity component almost forces us to recognize that we're all individuals, we're all unique, we all have strengths, we all have challenges, we all have a background, and it's that diverse makeup, if you will, that allows us to, as society, function better as opposed to being homogenous. But I will say this, you have to have a balanced conversation between critical race theory and social justice, and also the understanding that within the context of society and individuals who, you use the terminology like colorblind per se, in terms of not really even like seeing the differences between people. And I think those are kind of dichotomous. I think you have to almost like not be colorblind and recognize the other person for who they are and accept who they are in terms of their uniqueness for society to function. Different story. The book goes into white privilege, and the white privilege suggests that in the United States you have people who are rewarded and have certain advantages as a result of their race. And I mean, I can cite two different examples of friends of mine who are African American. One individual, he attended undergrad at an Ivy League school, and he has his MBA from Northwestern. He's driving with one of his friends, excuse me, in Chicago, and while in Chicago, the police pull the car over. They don't pull the driver out, they pull my friend out. And quite frankly, they pulled him out because he's African American. And that is not a unique case. And it's unfortunate that you have this targeting that happens and this racial profiling that happens, but it does happen. And, it's nothing more than being African American and driving a car. The loose terminology or the colloquialism for that is, DWB. If you don't know what that is, I would ask you to ask a friend. As a result of this, you have harassment from the police. Perhaps you have bias in the hiring process. There's minimal or reduced employment opportunities as a result. And when you start now shifting your gaze from the general population and then you shift it more towards athletics, does color matter? In some regards, no, because it's a true meritocracy. And, you have different individuals that gravitate to different sports for different reasons because they're good at them. And in that regard, it really doesn't matter if the person is Asian, European, African American. It is a matter of if they can perform or not. And so the meritocracy that we see in athletics kind of changes that perspective a little bit. But the point the book makes is within the context of that meritocracy, you have 70% of NFL and NBA athletes are African American. As a reader of this, I would then ask the question, what about baseball? How about hockey? I don't think the percentages would be as high if they included those sports, or even if they included, other sports outside of football and basketball. They also note that half of American men go to college to remain connected to athletics. I ask, what about females? What about women? So in some regard, I think the book is kind of not manipulating the data, but they're parsing out the data that suits and supports their argument the best, and they're leaving some out at the expense of really painting a clearer picture. But I get the point they're trying to make here, but they're really talking about exploitation. And to a certain degree, when you talk about college athletics, you have, you have college athletics where, uh, African American males really view college athletics as the ability to have an extension of their ability to play a sport. And I would contest that you probably have some athletic programs who, well, they take advantage of their people. And you can think of a situation where an athlete travels far from home, they live in an apartment, they go to school, and so as a result, the family that supports that student athlete now has a certain obligation financially in terms of having that student travel to the school, having a student enroll in the school, or the athlete enroll in the school, having that student athlete live in an apartment and pay rent and buy food and pay for bills and all the above. And so in some regard, when you look at the socioeconomics of that, in some regards, if you have a coach who is not being genuine or honest, they might be leading their athletes and that the family of those athletes down a path of ruin, financial ruin specifically, because they're being promised the opportunity to do all these things in terms of getting a degree, moving on to a four-year school, perhaps getting a scholarship, and they're taking a pretty sizable financial risk without any well-defined end result. And I think depending on the coach and depending upon the environment, you just might have a case where your athletes are absolutely being exploited and taken advantage of. So if we revisit the AC acculturation process, the authors cite research that athletes who go to a different country, they play their sport, in a different country, they felt lonely. They found that the climate, as I read this, the people to be unfriendly, and they failed to adapt to the lifestyle, and so they went back home. Think of, my former college roommate who ended up playing for the Bologna Doves. He had a wonderful time. He really enjoyed his time when he was in Italy. But for some people, they feel very much ostracized and not part of the culture. And so as a result, they're homesick, they're lonely, they don't fit in, and so they leave. So there's an argument for having in place the ability to have your athletes be acclimated to that culture. Now, something like this, where you have the international player pathway through the NFL, and all the major sports have this, but they have the opportunity to play their sport in their home country, and this presents the ability for these athletes to then be exposed to the sport, refine their skills, and then be able to come to the United States and have the opportunity to play their sport here. There's no mistake made. Look, make no mistake about it. The NFL will expand. I think they're going to have an entire conference in Europe at some point. Not today, tomorrow, the next, but this will evolve, and there's a reason why they're playing their games international. And I have to say, I'm also really excited about the proliferation of flag football and having it be involved in the Olympics going forward. You think of the population of people that maybe didn't like the contact of football, but they get the chance to be exposed to the strategies and the work ethic and everything that goes into refining one's skills to play the sport of football without the contact. What a great way to grow the sport with a population of people who, quite frankly, may have not have been interested in proceeding with the sport just because of the fear of the contact alone. I think it's a wonderful marketing tool to grow that business. Now, I would look at the NFL Player Pathway Program and others. The NBA has one, as well as Major League Baseball. So I'm going to go ahead and click out of this and go to the next presentation. I will see you in a moment.